So what is a pollinator garden? And why do we create them? And how did pollinator relationships even begin? It's a question that I've often thought about. You know, what was the first impetus? Was there an insect that found the plant, or did the plant do something that said, come hither? I don't know which way it is, but we developed this pollinator garden here at the Heritage Garden to show visitors how they can bring nature into the garden by using nature. When creating a design for a pollinator garden, I think about all the visitors who may come. I think about birds, insects. I think about even animals, chipmunks, etc. Because while we think about the plants we want to bring insects in, we also want to think about the plants that won't be eaten down to the ground by other mammals like deer or woodchucks, chipmunks, etc. To create a pollinator garden is to invite all of nature in, and that's something that needs to be understood. We're going to take a tour through the garden and talk about some of the plants that I selected, but also talking about, gee, we couldn't get this plant, so we substituted another. And that is sort of the way with design. You create a design, but then you have to be flexible depending on the plants you can find and how the garden comes together. So here we have a viola, a violet. And this viola is important for many of our fritillary species. And later in the season, they drink nectar. What's really important is, do you see these little holes on the leaves? Those holes are a good thing. That means that the fritillary larvae are eating. There are some fritillary species that are obligate larval feeders on violets. So all those violets in the lawn, leave them. It's fritillary food. Let's move over to another favorite of mine. We have here phlox. Phlox is fantastic for butterflies and even hummingbirds. And when you look at them, you'll notice that each flower has a deeper throat or corolla extension. And because of that, the butterflies can put their proboscis down in there. Proboscis, other name for the curling tube that they have to suck nectar. But they can put their proboscis down in there and get the nectar from deep in the flower. The other animals that can do that are hummingbirds and maybe some of the long-tongued bees, but I'm not sure. But not only that, many of our garden phlox are fragrant. And who doesn't love fragrance in the summer garden? If we move over to the asters, we have purple dome here. And this right here is one of the aromatic asters. So this is a New England aster, and this is an aromatic aster. And right now, I am watching all the little flies that are going around, little insects, bumblebees, honeybees. You will also see butterflies. And we often say that an aster can be some of the last drinks of the season for a butterfly. And as you look at the flowers, you can see that where they're going to concentrate is that beautiful yellow disc right in there. And a honeybee just flew past looking for nectar to take back to the hive. One of my favorite plants in the pollinator garden is the purple coneflower. We have 3 of them right here, and it is late in the season. We're in fall, so you usually don't see a lot of bloom, although this one right here has decided to push out another flower. So their main period of bloom is in the summer, but they will also bloom in the fall. With purple coneflower, you not only feed insects, but you feed the birds. You leave those seed heads up later in the season so that in the winter you'll see goldfinches, and you'll see other birds that are seed feeders that will come to the flowers, the spent flowers, and then not only will they eat, but they'll help you scatter the seeds, which is important for purple coneflower to come back.
So the grasses, this is the little bluestem. What a fantastic native grass. And you can see it's going into its fall color. We have beautiful purples, a little bit of scarlet. But what's important about this plant is even though they don't have these big flowers that you like to look at, they have little flowers and the bees will come and collect pollen. They don't have nectar, but they have pollen, and pollen is just as important to a bee as is nectar. And if you'll notice, we call this a bunch grass, and at the bottom, at the base, is where you will often see insects and queen bumbles overwinter. And that's just an important part of the cycle. They will overwinter in other places too, and sometimes at the base of some of our flowering plants, but they seem to prefer some of our bunch grasses.
Right in front of me is one of the mountain mints. And I hope you can see the beautiful silvery white flowers and the silvery white leaves on the top. And when you smell it, it is such a great smell. And this is another tea plant for us humans. But for insects, you will find everything here. You will find the hoverflies, the syrphid flies, bees, butterflies, yellow jackets, wasps, hornets, and maybe even birds going for seeds later in the season, but they would have to be the very small birds. But it too is a spreader, and you'll notice we put the spreaders together, so we're going to watch and see who wins. Anise hyssop, another herbal plant, but also a phenomenal plant for bees, butterflies, and it grows quite tall, so it could get up here to 4 to 5 feet tall. But there are times when it is abuzz with insects. But it's another plant that we humans can use too. It makes a lovely tea, anise hyssop, but it's also just a beautiful addition to the garden, and it blooms from June until here we are in October. It will still be blooming end of September into October. So it's a workhorse for your garden. Hibiscus, not a plant that a lot of people think about for the pollinator garden. But here we have our hardy hibiscus that is native to Ohio. It is a wetland plant, but it doesn't have to be wet. But if you have a wet spot in your garden, be sure to include this beauty. Imagine the size of the blooms to be like a salad to dinner plate size. Big, bold, beautiful white, pinks, and reds. And not only that, it brings in the beautiful bee that is an obligate bee for the Malvaceae family or the mallow family, which hibiscus is a part of. So this is a plant that helps one of our specialist bees. So while many of our plants will serve generalist bees, this plant serves generalists and a very important specialist. So I mentioned the little bluestem, which is a lovely native plant, and we also have our big bluestem. And we're talking about 6 to 8 feet tall when it's happy. This big bluestem is a special cultivar called Blackhawks. And you may notice that the leaves are an absolutely gorgeous maroon purple. It's another one of our bunch grasses. So it offers the same pollinator services that you see with the little bluestem, in that the pollen is important for visiting bees, but also it offers that winter refuge for the queen bumbles and other insects who need to overwinter in the soil or close to plants. I could truly talk about every single one of these plants in the garden and tell you why each one is needed. And here is a plant that is so important for a big group of specialist bees. What we're looking at here is one of the goldenrods. This is Short's goldenrod, and this is the cultivar Solar Cascade. And you can see, now this is a young plant. All of these plants that I've been showing you are going to get bigger. This is the first year that they're in the ground, first season. But if you look at this, you can see how it will cascade down and create this beautiful mound of golden flowers in August, September, and into October. So important for our specialist bees of that time. Not only that, but this is another herbal plant. It is edible. I've been told the leaves are tasty and taste like spinach, but I don't know if I would go that far. But it has been used herbally by native peoples, and I've just always wondered, why don't we put more goldenrod in the garden? And I know it sometimes has a bad reputation, especially the Canada and tall goldenrods. But let's look at the more well-mannered goldenrods like Solar Cascade and Fireworks and the bluestem goldenrod and zigzag goldenrod, which, by the way, can self-seed like bejeepers, but after a while you know what the seedlings look like and you can take them out. But please consider putting this so important plant in for our specialist bees.